From the first part of this story, I was looking at all my wives. Each one had rubies and pearls and diamond rings. I was rich, I could buy anything. The first sound I heard was a scream from my harem. One had stolen the other's shoes. I bought them shoes that literally covered the floor. By then a cat fight had ensued. I ran through the desert from my wives that complained. It felt good to be out of their range, with winds coming down faster than rain, 'cause my mothers-in-law are about to drive me insane. Blah, 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 blah. After 3 days in the Mideast sun, I met up with this kid. After 4 days, trouble had just begun. He was the son of Amir Khalid. Thought this was the end before I could even begin. Khalid understood he had many wives that were kin. You see, we ran through the desert from my wives that complained. It felt good to be happy and free again. In the palace, I never got in a word, but outside I always enjoyed listening to crickets and birds. Blah, 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 blah. Blah, 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 blah. After 5 days, it started to occur to me, having all these women can be intimidating. We had oils and perfumes and scents for lovemaking, plus there were holes in our box springs. I gave one of my wives a wild jaguar. She wanted a Persian cat instead. The others would whine about the color of wine, so I gave them grape juice and bread. See, I ran through the desert where the camels look the same. Out here you're not a sheik or a king. In the desert are tranquilities of the past, 'cause if there are women around, it will not last. Blah, 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 blah. From the second part of our story, I recall dealing with my other wives. They had silk sheets and marble floors for dining, drove Mercedes, Lamborghinis, and even a Ferrari. The ugly ones I hide, I married them as an aside to keep peace with the tribes. I had a chef from France, knew how to cook anything. The southern girl taught him to cook chitlins. Now there's 50 ex-rulers running through the desert smiling again. They left their kingdoms for peace in the end. In the desert, you'll find there's no talking, 'cause it's just nature trying to do its own thing. Blah,